Welcome back to Always On Call, the show about caregiving by caregivers. I'm Kris McCabe. Becoming a caregiver for a partner or loved one with Alzheimer's is the most rewarding and challenging journey we can have. One way caregivers can maintain their connection with their loved one is to adapt some of the things that they used to do together in the past. You can meet the current needs of your loved one that you're taking care of while continuing to create memories together. Today we're chatting with LeAnn Specht. LeAnn is the loving wife and full-time caregiver for her husband, Jeff. They live in Colorado with LeAnn's daughters, where Jeff was diagnosed with advanced early onset Alzheimer's in 2019 at the age of 62. LeAnn, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You bet. I'm happy to be here. I love to talk about my husband and our journey.
I love that. So, as a caregiver for a spouse, what would you say is unique about caregiving for a husband with Alzheimer's?
Sure. So I think that what we face day to day on taking care of our loved ones, whether it is your grandparent or your parent, your sibling or your spouse, is similar as far as, the minute details of feeding and bathing and all of that. I think it's the emotional part of it that's different with a spouse. I think that and with all due respect, while your life is on hold for that number of years while you're taking care of a grandparent or a parent, you know that at some point you're going to go back to being able to pursue your dreams and that type of thing. And I think that's the biggest difference, is that while I'm also taking care of him, I don't know where I'm going to be left when this is over. I'm struggling with that daily as to losing myself, because everything that we had planned for, he was retiring and I would be able to retire early. I would have been. Now I won't be able to. So I'm losing that, financial aspect and that kind of thing. And so I think that's the biggest difference, is that all of my future plans and hopes and dreams are shattered along with that, versus, being able to take care of a parent and go back to your life at some point, even though you're going to also have to pick up the pieces if you're in that situation, of course. But I just think it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with dealing with anticipatory grief. How has that impacted your mental health as a caregiver? Because you talk about, the loss of the life that you guys would be living. How do you manage that?
Right. So I compartmentalize, and I'm asked often how I get through, every day of dealing with what this disease looks like and its progression. And so I admit I sweep things under the rug, and that is how I get through day to day, is I really just try not to think about it as much. I cry myself to sleep a lot. That's when everyone else is sleeping. My, daughters, Jeff, I'll be laying next to him in bed at night, and that's when I start thinking. And so I don't like that time of night, because that is when it's quiet and I'm done being so busy. And that's when I think about it. And it's hard too, because I start thinking about what his memorial might look like, or I start thinking about, he loves music, and I'll talk about that more too. So I had told him before that I would sing him, away. And so when I start thinking about those things, so I try not to. I just really try to get through every day by compartmentalizing the entire situation. And sometimes I know that's not the best for my mental health either. But that's how I get through it, because otherwise I get down this rabbit hole of what, is to come. And so I just try not to be sad. I try to love him the best that I can every minute while he's here.
How have you been able to continue to create shared memories with your husband throughout the progression of his disease?
Sure. So, I have a saying someone told me, of course, once, that just because someone with dementia can't remember things doesn't mean that they can't experience them. And so we continue to live life as normal as we can. And whether it's, big things like, we're on a trip actually right now. And, so we're continuing to try to take trips. It's just changed, right? Like I have to handle the, IDs and the passports or, whatever, and the luggage and all of the plans and everything, and hold his hand through the airport. And it's changed, but we adapt. And then we still go to concerts, but I get ADA seating because that was what he loves the music, but he was struggling with going up and down those aisles and, the people getting up and going back and forth. But then I found that we could do ADA seats right at the top, and they're folding chairs that he can handle better. So we've made adjustments. And then it's also the simple things, we hold hands, we sit every evening, we end the day on the couch with my head on his shoulder, his lap, and an occasional glass of wine. I mean, just the things that we did that I continue to try to make happen, and not, giving up, even if the next day he can't talk about it or can't remember it. It just will put a smile on his face to continue to do his favorite things. So
What advice do you have for someone out there listening or watching who has a spouse or partner recently diagnosed? What hope can you offer them?
yeah, I my biggest thing, I think, is what I was saying about living life as normal as you can. There's so many instances that we hear about where, people reach out to me and say, my mother-in-law is just putting my father-in-law in a chair, and doesn't want to take him out in public. Part of it is the embarrassment. I understand that. You learn to get thick skin and not care what people think. That's changed me in every way. But to offer them that life that they loved and doing those things. Like I said, for us, it's travel, it's concerts. For someone else, that may look, completely different. But for as long as you possibly can, to live as normal. And that looks different for everybody. I have a favorite saying: if you know one person with dementia, one person with dementia. They're all different. But that's to live as normal as you can. And the other thing to me that's been really important is to keep as mobile as possible. Again, that sitting them in a corner type of, mentality isn't going to help in the long run either. And I think, even doctors, everything have said, everything we did with keeping living normally, with going to the gym, with going for walks, all of that has helped for this 7 years to progress a little bit slower. It's gotten more progressive in the last probably year and a half, and now is progressing faster as time goes. But you definitely doing all of those things helped us to fit in, a lifetime of memories in the last 4 or 5 years for sure.
Thank you for taking the time to sit down and share your journey with us, LeAnn.
Yeah.
If you've experienced what we've talked about today, or you're right in the middle of it, we'd love to hear from you. We want to bring you into our caregiver community to meet others going through what you are and give you resources, tools, and a whole lot of support. Just email us at podcast@patientsrising.org. You can also connect with us on social media by searching at Patients Rising on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. We'll be back with a new episode in just 2 weeks. And remember that while caregiving is common, caregivers are special.